man, Tennessee fans really needed that one. So the two things that Tennessee fans need in order to get in the playoffs is they needed Oregon to lose, and they need TCU to drop a game. Because if TCU drops a game in the Big 12, that's less impressive than Tennessee losing to the number one team, even though they barely scored 2 field goals and a touchdown against us. So I don't know. Like, if Tennessee really wants to get in there, they're going to have TCU take a loss, because I think if it stays the way it is, and basically what you have is you have Michigan and Ohio State, and they are on a collision course. Because if they both stay undefeated through Week 11, they will be playing an undefeated top 4 matchup in the shoe on Thanksgiving weekend. With that being said, one of them has to take a dub. With that being said, one of them has to take an L. If Ohio State takes the dub, and it's big enough, Michigan's out. I think Tennessee comes up and makes it in. If Ohio State loses close enough at number 2, I think the committee puts 2 Big Ten teams in the playoffs. I think that it would be Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, TCU at 3, and Ohio State at 4.
I think a one-loss Ohio State team makes it in, no matter how much I disagree, because I don't like Ohio State. I think if it's a close loss, I think they get in at 4. I agree, and I think Michigan jumps up to 2 as the undefeated Big Ten champion. I agree, for sure.
Now, with that being said, though, I would kind of disagree with that, but I think that's what they do. I think that Tennessee beating Bama at home, but losing to Georgia on the road, I think that, honestly, Tennessee U has a better resume. I mean, their strength of schedule is number 3. Ohio State's is number 77. Now, Georgia's isn't much better. It's in the high 40s, but still, it's not a great resume. Tennessee actually has a really tough resume. They played a really tough schedule. They played some tough opponents. They played LSU at home, and they played LSU on the road and destroyed them. They played Alabama at home. I mean, they played some tough West teams, and they had to go through the entire SEC East. And the SEC East is definitely not as tough of a division as the SEC West, all right? But we do have Georgia, we do have Florida, and, as much as people don't want to say it, we do have Missouri. And Missouri is not a bad team, okay? I think that they have a lot of struggles finishing out the second half. So with that being said, look at what happened to Georgia. I mean, Georgia almost lost to them. But the thing is, Missouri had like a 13-point lead on us coming into the second half, and they couldn't finish. And I think that's the problem. They can't finish. It's like the score in the third quarter at one point was 28-24. Missouri had gotten back to 4 points. The final score was I think 66-28. 66-24. So, Tennessee laid the lumber. And, I think some people were asking, like, why did Tennessee run the score up on Missouri? And the reason is because TCU and Oregon were on their butts. Oregon could have won out and won the Pac-12. Oregon is out of the playoff race at this point, I would suggest, because they dropped all the way to 12. I didn't see that coming. I figured they'd go to 10 because they had to go up against Utah, and their one loss was to a ranked Georgia team that was really good, and to a ranked Washington at home. That was close. But Oregon played a terrible game on Saturday. I mean, they played okay at the end, but, they had a lot of turnovers. They didn't play well. So I think that Oregon's probably out of the playoff race, which is what Tennessee needed. So I think that is it. If TCU loses, Tennessee's in. If Michigan loses, Tennessee's in. Now, here's the big question. I'm going to let you talk about this for a second. If LSU wins out and beats Georgia in the SEC championship, do they make the playoffs?
I'm going to give you my opinion. As an LSU fan, as a college football fan, I think it would be bizarre for the committee to leave out the SEC champion if LSU did the impossible and beat Georgia. I think that would be bizarre. But given history and given the reality of this year's top 6 teams, I truly do not think they would keep out a one-loss Georgia. I think LSU could win the SEC title game, and they would keep LSU out even as the SEC champion because they're a 2-loss team. I disagree wholeheartedly. I think at that point they should jump Tennessee. I think they should put LSU in over that because they beat Georgia, who beat Tennessee. But I think in all reality, if this is the biggest if in my life, If LSU did the impossible and beat this phenomenal Georgia team in Atlanta on December 3rd, I think the committee would put the Big Ten champion at 1, presumably being Michigan or Ohio State. They would put Georgia at 2, TCU, if they went out on the Big 12, at 3, and then Tennessee or Michigan or Ohio State, either or, depending on the result of the Big Ten, at 4. I don't think, and they can say what they want to. The 2-loss LSU team is the key to chaos, and I don't disagree with that. But I still don't think the committee keeps Georgia out, even if they lose to LSU, which I think is bizarre. But I think until we have an expanded playoff, I don't think LSU makes it this year.
Yeah, I get your points there, but mine is this: if LSU beats Georgia, I think Georgia drops to 4. I think LSU goes to 3. If TCU stays undefeated, TCU goes to 2, and then the winner of Ohio State, Michigan. Then the winner of the Big Ten goes on to number 1. So my guess is the way things are going to go is Georgia's going to go undefeated and win the SEC championship. They're going to be first seed in the playoffs. Look, man, I like LSU. I think they're a great team, and they can pull it out. They really can. They've played well since their loss to Tennessee. Okay, but I think Georgia with the defense and they're just the way they've been playing this year, I think that they pull it out. I mean, this is our 5th SEC championship appearance in 7 years under Kirby Smart. So, and we've only won one of them, which sucks. So we want one, okay? We want to win one. We haven't won one since 2017. We're going to come out guns a-blazing. We're going to win. We're going to try to win our best. Anyway, so I think Georgia wins the SEC championship. They're at 1. I think Ohio State beats Michigan, unfortunately. I think that's probably what's going to happen. Ohio State wins, so they're at 2. They stay at 2. They go on to play the Big Ten championship, and they're probably going to beat Illinois, so they stay at 2 and they win. All right, number 3, I bet TCU wins out. So TCU at 3. I think Tennessee at 4. If, and only if, Michigan wins, Big Ten, the committee will put 2 Big Ten teams in. It'll be 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 TCU, 4 Ohio State. You'll see Michigan and TCU, and you'll see Ohio State and Georgia. The only way Tennessee makes the playoffs is if TCU loses or Michigan beats Ohio State. If TCU loses, Michigan does not have to beat Ohio State to make the playoff. If TCU loses, they'll be looking at an SEC championship Georgia, presumably, a Big Ten champion Ohio State, a Michigan team who lost to number 2 Ohio State on the road, and finally, they'll put Tennessee in. So I think the resume is stronger at Tennessee, and I think if any of those things happen, I think that's the reason they'll lose. And they'll get in.
So we talk a lot about Bama bias, but I think Buckeye bias is a real thing. And
Absolutely.
For what you said, Mason, I agree. I think if Ohio State loses to Michigan, 2 Big Ten teams will get in. And I don't agree with that, primarily because that means that Ohio State will finally have met their match. And I'll be honest, I don't know who's going to win that game. I don't know what the over-under is. I don't know what the spread is. I don't know what the FPI says. I haven't looked at any of it. But just looking at it from an overall standpoint, I think it would be bizarre for Ohio State to get in. But I agree with you. I think a 1-loss Ohio State gets in, but a 1-loss Michigan does not. And that kind of I don't agree with that. But I think you're 100% correct on that.
I think if TCU loses, they do not have to win Ohio State, Michigan in order to get in. Michigan can lose that game and get in, because then you'll have a 1-loss Michigan, a 1-loss TCU, and a 1-loss Tennessee. With 1-loss Tennessee being to Georgia, the number 1 team in the country, and number 3 at the time, now number 1, and your 1-loss Michigan being to number 2 Ohio State. So those 2 teams will make it in. If TCU stays undefeated, goes all the way and wins the Big 12 championship, which I firmly believe they will, I think that they'll get in. And then Michigan will have to win. If TCU goes to the Big 12 championship, Michigan has to win. Okay? So that's it. So TCU looks undefeated going into week 12. They got to win. Michigan got to win. That's it. So, but Michigan wants to win, and I think that they can win. But I'm not making an official pick, but I'm pretty much leaning towards Ohio State.